Good evening, everybody. Welcome to CW Live. My name's Chris Webb, Head of Communications at the CW. A really big session tonight, and I can already see how excited you are by the numbers piling in, which is fantastic. We're covering delivery issues this evening with our National Officer, Mark Baulch. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone.
We've also got with us tonight, as we want to you all to recognise, we've got Francis and Nicola signing. So hopefully, people appreciate that, and it makes the session as accessible as possible. So we just want to say we're really grateful for Francis and Nicola joining us tonight. We also have a new format this week, which I think you've appreciated, which is basically getting straight into the questions. Having like 55, 56 minutes solid of you being able to ask Mark and the other officers anything you want related to the newly agreed national agreement. And then obviously we give Mark the chance at the end to sum up. So the format's worked really effectively. What I'm going to do now, whilst you pile in on the comments, letting us know where you're watching us from, letting us know you're proud to be a member of this great trade union. Whilst you're doing all of that and also starting to ask your questions, what we ignore, obviously, our agreement has been achieved in, which is the COVID environment. And I was talking to Mark beforehand, and we feel it's appropriate for Mark just to say a few words in opening on the issues our members have been going through and the fantastic job they've been doing over the course of almost a year now. So over to you, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, as Chris has said, I mean, our members and have been absolutely first class during this crisis. For 8-10 months now, it's been a hard slug for everyone. And we've got, and I certainly have, on behalf of our delivery members, got nothing but admiration and very proud of the way that our members have conducted themselves. The role that they play within UK society is absolutely fantastic. It's really humbling to see, particularly like in the summer, with all of the images around different delivery offices of people in fancy dress and doing charity work for food banks and elderly people who you couldn't leave their houses due to being shielding. I could go on and on and on. And on top of that, providing a service which I think has demonstrated, not to us, because we know how important the postal service is, and we know how important and the vital role our members play in UK society, but it's really brought that to the fore. And in addition, the role and the work that's been carried out, for example, on the various test kit activity, helping to keep the nation safe through the different NHS government initiatives, and also now the vaccination letter and the role that our members are going to play in that, on top of the continued different test kit initiatives, has been absolutely fantastic. And I want to thank our members in delivery personally for that, and the nation should also absolutely thank our members for the fantastic role that they played during the crisis.
Thank you, Mark. That's brilliant. One of the things following on from that, before we get right into the questions, is obviously in the last sort of 24, 48 hours, there's been a lot of noise in the media about delays and, are people going to miss their vaccination appointments because the postal service is collapsing? And that's led to, not to be too fine a point on it, some criticism of our members, from MPs, to name one group, of all political persuasions. What would you say to those people who are taking the opportunity to take a dig at our members in this environment?
I'd say really I'm angry about it, actually, because I'm disappointed with some people who are sitting indoors, criticising the service. Our members are out there on the streets. I know because I spoke to my own postman, and obviously we take feedback and talking to our reps and members across the country who then what that does, that creates pressure on them, through the criticism, which then winds up some customers to make complaints. And our members have gone above and beyond the call of duty over the last 10 months. As I've said, they provided a fantastic role. And I should have said as well, I mean, absolutely sincere and deepest condolences to anyone, and our members will be out there who either know people in their own workplaces, some of our members, but also some of their family members who they may have lost, who have been ill and have been affected directly through COVID. And whilst all that's going on, not only have they had to deal with that, but they've been out there delivering right throughout this. So to face criticism of the service, yeah, we understand that, Royal Mail could do more in some cases, and they've been slow to react. But for our members to face the brunt of that, and, when they've done all that they have done during this time, is, as I said, is outrageous. And it makes me angry that's manifesting itself in, with complaints and irate people, taking that out on our members, when our members are the very people as key workers who have put themselves on the line during the crisis to provide a service. So, we're going to do, and I spoke to you, Chris, the other day, yesterday morning, and we've been taking feedback, as I said, we're going to refute that absolutely and defend our members to the hilt, because, more so than ever, they deserve that.
Thank you, Mark. And also thank you to all the members who are piling in on the session. It's brilliant to have so many of you with us. Please keep sharing the link, tagging your colleagues. Let's make this a massive session where as many of our delivery colleagues as possible get to hear from Mark. Mark, I'm going to have to come straight to, I've got a list and I can see the members asking so many questions already, which is fantastic. But the one that seems to be the most asked, if you like, is why has the union agreed to Sunday working? And despite, I know yourself, you've done lots of sessions around the UK. We've had sessions with Dave and Terry. We've had communications go out emphasising the fact that it is absolutely agreed nationally that this is on a voluntary basis. We still have some members who perhaps haven't read the agreement properly. Maybe some people who are really genuine and just don't trust management and feel that the union has been suckered in here and all of a sudden our whole membership will be working every Sunday. What would you say to that?
I'd say that's not the case, and I would say that for people who are fearful of that, I would try, well, hopefully I will, calm their fears, because absolutely it's not about the Sunday delivery, and the future Sunday delivery of parcels is an area which Royal Mail will have to get into. It will have to get into that area because of the competition in the parcel sector. And if Royal Mail doesn't get into that delivery space, then other parcel carriers will, and they already are, and that is a reality. Now, if you're a retailer, and retail is growing, and home retail is growing, particularly through the crisis, and there's no sign that trend is going to reduce. In fact, it's probably likely to continue to increase. Then, and you're a retailer and you want to use one of the carriers, you're going to use a carrier that delivers 7 days across the week. Otherwise, you may choose not to use Royal Mail, and not only then will Royal Mail lose that Sunday volume, potentially they could lose the entire volume from a retailer. So it's important that we look at the future. The other thing I want to say as well is, look, this is not core delivery activity. This will be bespoke, and it will be of a heavily reduced number away from what is delivered on the core 6 days a week. Now, at the moment, UK wide, I think we have somewhere in the region of circa 65,000 delivery core routes that go out 6 days a week. And obviously we're fighting to maintain that 6 day service and that core product. So what we're talking about on a Sunday is only a fraction of that number. So we're not talking about large amounts of people. But the other point I want to make is on this, so it is voluntary. You emphasise it, and I want to do as well. But the other point as well is that it's important that, it was us that pushed the company. This is a kind of ironic debate in some ways, because the choice we had in this agreement and the choice we decided to take, because it's a choice we've pushed the company to make, is the fact that we want the company to innovate and to grow. And part of that innovation and growth means new products and services. And part of that means being in the marketplace 7 days a week, 24/7. So, we can take a choice, and it's an easier one in some ways, that we don't push the company to grow. The company's original strategy, if people remember, was particularly under Rico back, which we fought hard to defeat, and our members backed us on that over successive ballots, even though the company ran to the courts, was one of shrinking the core down, pushing volume away into a separate, non-core delivery options, which we believe was the foot in the door to the forerunner then to attack the core terms and conditions and our members' job security and terms and conditions along with it, which would have damaged everything. And so that is a choice we've made, and we're very proud to make that choice. That's the right choice to make, and that is a crossroads, if you like, that's in the agreement that's in front of us now. We've actually, by our faults and by your faults and by your support, we turned the company's position round, and it's now one of ambition, and it's one of ambition to grow and to grow across all of the sectors, not just in parcels, innovate on other services as well as trying to stem letter decline, but also opening 24/7 and being open for business 24/7. And on the back of that, of course, that enhances our prospect for pay deals, for job security, and for all the benefits that we absolutely demand and we absolutely want our members, and our members deserve to achieve or receive. So it's important.
Thanks, Mark. So, to me, obviously, as someone who's has listened to Dave say it, Terry say it, and now the National Officer for Delivery say it, it's very clear. But, I'll ask you for a one-word answer, Mark, because you were emphatic there in a detailed answer. But Mike says, can you guarantee that Sundays will be not compulsory for everyone? If you cannot give this guarantee, then it should be a no vote. Can you guarantee that?
We can guarantee that in the short-term activity. Going forward, we will design, if Sundays will be an option. There are people that want Sundays. So we will absolutely strive to ensure that it is not compulsory. It says it in the agreement, not compulsory. I don't know how much clearer we can make it.
Thank you, Mark. Spot on. So another question that's come quite frequently, Dan, put this one up from Danny. How would a clock in, clock out work? Could it affect people's pay? A lot of nervousness out there amongst that subject, Mark.
No, I think the words in the agreement are very clear on contractual pay. It will not affect contractual pay. It is simply an updated system to replace what exists currently in units, particularly in delivery offices, which is the paper signing in and out sheet. Now, when you talk to most people in other companies and you talk about still signing on in and out using a pen on a bit of paper, that is quite unusual. Most other workplaces have automated clocking in and out systems, and this is no different to that. In terms of from a delivery point of view, this will simply be, I didn't bring the security pass on the lanyard, but it'll just be simply by swiping that either on a console or through a PDA, simply swiping it to press green for start, and then at the end of the duty pressing red to finish. And that is effectively it. It's an active system using the security pass, and that will be how it will work. In terms of will it affect pay, not contractual pay? The issue the other day, I think, was raised on Monday night around overtime and the verbal agreement, and that will be how it will work, because effectively, and we've got this already in the words in the PDA OA data where retrospectively overtime payment cannot be taken away. So where that's been pre-agreed with the manager, if someone goes over protracted delivery, they've made an agreement because they need to go over time by an hour or whatever. If that's the agreement that's struck, and that overtime will be paid.
Spot on, Mark. Thank you, mate. Another regular one, Jason here says, what data is going to be used to guide a revision when the workload currently is so chaotic? So that point of saying, like, we will face change in our offices, but how can it be judged just at the minute because it's just total chaos?
It is total chaos, and this is one of the factors why we do need to move forward on structural revision activity. Now, the agreement is very clear that we are going to move forward, and we have agreed to annual revisions. The capability to carry that out in terms of the planning activity, is going to mean a 2 or 3 year program of every unit having a structural revision. But in front of that, for those units that don't receive a structural revision this year, in order to get the short working week, that will be done through tabletop guidelines, and we're producing those guidelines at the moment. In terms of the structural activity and in terms of measuring performance, Royal Mail has developed something called the outdoor workload model. And also now, in terms of the structural revision activity, we've got a tool which is the upgraded GeoRoute system. Both of those systems for the outdoor element will use study values that were carried out 3 or 4 years ago, which were observed times. They're not rated times. There was a number of study activity which was carried out using a range of ages and both sexes right across different parts of the country. So urban, rural, and town deliveries, and every single element that is the makeup of an outdoor delivery route has been pulled together. So like replenishment, going through the bundle, going to the doorstep, putting a letter through the letterbox. Every single component task of that has a value and observed time, which is then put into the systems, and then that is how the revision activity will take place, using that data for structural revisions. For non-structural revisions, that will be dealt with using the outdoor workload model, but also we're developing, and that's part of the agreement, the productivity measure, and we're working through that. And we've got a group working through that in order to make sure that any improvements within the unit are judged exclusively within the unit, and so that's how it will be undertaken. Very clearly on this, we tried to limit. The company have always been, or have been keen, or had been over the last year or so, on trying to use actual real-time data and continuous improvement techniques. And this agreement pushes that back. This agreement puts productivity and work study on a different footing, and will put our reps back in control. And what we want to do, and offices are crying out for revisions. Some units around the country haven't had a revision now, a proper structural revision, probably since 2010, 2011, since we did that agreement. And so it's long overdue. That is another reason it was important, and that's a key part of the agreement. If you read the structural revision activity, that everything is to be jointly developed and agreed, with attendance patterns that are agreed, locally derived that, with all the other elements in there, which are absolutely enshrined in the pathway to change and the key principles. So, we're very, very confident that that will be done in the right way, and we're very confident that we can deal with some of these, resourcing and workload challenges day to day through the revision activity and the ongoing activity that's committed to within the agreement.
Thank you, Mark. Point here from Dave Johnson. I know we're not talking attendance tonight, but a lot of people are asking the point I'm going to make, which Dave says attendance never policies to be agreed later and added to the agreement. How can we possibly vote on an unfinished agreement? And we've had quite a few people saying, obviously, yourself now and your team are going to go off and do detailed negotiations with the company, but our members are being asked to vote at this juncture. What happens if you go off and agree something members don't like. You know, how do we reconcile the fact that members are being asked to vote at this juncture?
I mean, if there's a few things. First of all the benefits in this agreement are front loaded. So the part of the pay, we could equally say, the employer could say, take the same view, say, well, how can we give you the pay deal without you accepting the change? So it's in that sense, it's a double-edged sword. So the pay elements and the commitments are up front. We were absolutely confident, particularly on that element of the tenancy agreement. I don't deal with that personally, although obviously we're a part of the collective. But our members will get a say on those individual agreements if they change. We're confident that we'll deal with them in the right way. You know, we would absolutely urge you. Yes, this is a key principles document, but it's a key principles document with the key principles enshrined in it, and you know, with the commitments that are absolutely enshrined in order to give us confidence to move forward on some of those other issues. So we're not asking people to vote blind on anything. We're asking people to vote for the agreement that's in front of them. And, you know, if there are any key changes subsequently, and I don't believe there will be, those will be brought back to branches and members individually to have a further say.
Thanks, Mark. And again, emphatic answer, and you couldn't have been clearer there. So Mark Stubbs here, I'm going to put this one up. Mark says, will I keep my Wallington week? And, you know, not going to take that question to you singularly. But if we go back now, you know, and I know you were making this case yourself as officer when we were balloting for industrial action, that Royal Mail were looking to strip away some of those more attractive attendance patterns that we've agreed over a number of years and secured over a number of years. There is a degree of worry amongst the membership around the 1 in 4s, the 1 in 6s, the innovative duty patterns, that it's voting yes for this agreement wipes all those away. What would you say to that?
No, absolutely not. It's the reverse. I mean, Royal Mail's position prior to the agreement was very much that. It was, they wanted a flat 1 in 6 attendance pattern right throughout the country, or throughout the UK. They wanted a minimum of a 5-hour delivery span, and they wanted a number of other things. And we very firmly fought against that, to the point where, you know, that, as far as we're concerned, and so, I mean, I share personally the same concerns, is a complete showstopper for us, a red line. We would not go in that direction, and the company were made very, very aware of that, and we were very clear to them on that position. So the position that we've ended up, it couldn't be clearer, and I'd urge everyone to read the agreement on both of the different buckets of change next year, but also for the ongoing structural revision activities. Make it absolutely clear that innovative duty patterns will continue, and the menu of duty options, which was jointly developed back in 2010 as part of those negotiations, which includes things like Wallington's, Wallington Week Plus, 9-day fortnights. There's all sorts of blading arrangements. There's a number of different arrangements in there, are enshrined in the agreement. Now, obviously, the ability to adopt or introduce those attendance patterns is absolutely written through the agreement. In addition to that, to jointly develop and come up with innovative local solutions is also clearly written into the agreement. So they're things that, you know, as I say, they were showstoppers for us, and so I can absolutely say that those options will be there. Having said that, this is not a but there is always, as in any duty arrangements, have to be the workload in order to, you know, to justify that. So if you want a 10-hour day, if you want 4-day weeks, etc., then there has to be 10 hours of workload to fill that up. Importantly, though, particularly now with the growth in parcels and the opportunity to innovate, that opportunity, particularly with things like consumer collections and other services growing, will assist us and will assist local units in developing those innovative attendance patterns and putting them in there. So, you know, very much are enshrined in the agreement. There's no, you know, nothing in there that rips them out. In fact, we fought very hard to make sure that isn't the case, and that is enshrined in the agreement.
Thanks, Mark. I mean, something we talk about regularly. Obviously, for over 2 years now, we've been, not to put too fine a point on it, in a very adversarial position with the company at every level of the union, really. And I know you've made that point to our members, to representatives, the difficulties you face doing your job as national officers. But our members have obviously faced that on a day-to-day basis themselves. And obviously, some agreement, there's a commitment from both parties now to improve relations. But comments like, for example, like Marie here saying you just can't trust Royal Mail with anything. Dee Dee is saying, will the bullying done by management finally stop once and for all? There is a scepticism down there, where, a feeling from a block of our members saying, like, we like what you've agreed. This sounds good to us, but again, I saw another comment from, I think it was John just now, saying we had all this with the 4 pillars and then they walked away with it. How can we trust Royal Mail to stand by and abide by what we've agreed nationally, Mark?
How can we trust Royal Mail? I suppose it's the question, I suppose. And listen, no one needs to tell me. I receive some of the horror stories. People writing directly to us, and you see it, and I talk to people as well, talk to our members, and some of the behaviour is absolutely disgraceful, and some of it is just unfathomable. It doesn't make any sense. There's no logic to it either. So how can you trust Royal Mail? Is a big question. But I would say that, look, we wouldn't exist as a trade union, I suppose, to some degree. If everything was in the garden was rosy every day, I suppose the challenges that we face, probably we wouldn't exist and wouldn't have made us some of the people we have in overcoming them. So I can't guarantee and sit here and say, right, the minute you put your cross in the ballot paper on this agreement, your world in your delivery office or wherever you work is going to improve, and all Royal Mail managers are going to turn into Salvation Army teachers or whatever, because that ain't the way life is. But what I can tell you is that through our strength and through your strength and your determination, that has enabled us to achieve the agreement. That's the first thing. The second thing is, and kind of like the supplementary question, Chris, around the 2018 agreement, and the ink was barely dry. And yeah, that is a bitter experience for us all, us included. Let me tell you, the last 18 months, 2 years, talking to some of these people ain't exactly been easy. Not like we're looking for any sympathy. That's the job we do. And we're all big enough, and me anyway, ugly enough to be able to deal with that. But we do now sense, absolutely, through the change in the chair, through the chair's attitude, the chair of the company, and through the appointment of the new CEO, that there is a sea change that is, washing through the company now. There is the commitment that they do want to work with the trade union. I think there is an absolute recognition, and the proof of the pudding will be in the eating. We know that that we can't carry on, and we couldn't carry on like we had done for the last 18 months, 2 years. Well, let's face it, it's been a battle, but it's been a battle for them. They've got nothing out of that either, because we've blocked them off thanks to the fantastic support of our members and our reps. But the company have made no progress either. We've got to put that aside. There is an opportunity here, and this is what this agreement is about. That's why it's called the Pathway to Change. It's an opportunity to put that aside and to pick up that growth opportunity, grow the company, grow the company's ambition, and along with it, take our members on that journey as well in order to enhance and protect their terms and conditions. So I can't sit here and give you absolute assurances, anybody. What I can guarantee you is, if that does change, and I don't think it will for the reasons I've just said, but if it does, we ain't going nowhere. The managerial structure within the company might change. The one constant always in the room is our resolve, our members' resolve, and this union's resolve in order to combat that and to push forward our members' agenda. So we're absolutely confident of continuing to do that. Can't give no guarantees of management behaviour. And some of that, even though the very top level individuals have changed, that will take time to reflect through. There are some people who are going to be bitter from Royal Mail, I can tell you that, and they will try and cling on to what they hoped would have been agreed and the strategy that the likes of Rico back and co were pushing, and they will probably feel that they've been let down on that, some of those managers. I couldn't care less about that. The key thing now is taking the agreement forward, and it's for us to pick the agreement up and run with it and get the benefits, but also drive the change through, negotiate change and change for the right reasons. And on the back of that as well, where we have got these managers have got that appalling behaviour and appalling attitude, and there's commitments in there to continue to deal with the culture, we were absolutely, and we're determined to stamp that out and get the right approach. You won't get innovation and people bought into local change activity and trying to grow the company on the back of trying to bully people and push people into doing things. It don't work. So people within the organisation managerially will have to accept that, and we're determined to push that agenda through.
Thank you, Mark. As the old saying goes, time flies when you're having fun. We're already halfway through the session. Hope you're all enjoying it. Seen a few comments from people saying, I've asked my question 2 or 3 times, you're avoiding it. I can guarantee you we're avoiding nothing. We've got over 4,500 of you watching across all of our platforms, Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, and there's hundreds of questions. So if we don't get to you, it's not that we don't like you. We really do like you all. It's just that we just trying to basically get a fair balance from across the UK and a fair balance of a type of questions as well. And I think you can see by the questions Mark's answered in terms of like the Sunday issue and everything else that's been raging out there. We're not ducking anything tonight. One thing that's come up, Mark, and I think I'll put a question up from M, who says, I am part-time collection starting at 2, could be made up to full-time and deliver packets before my collections. Instead, temps are being brought in to do it. Obviously not directly related to the agreement, but a lot of people are making comments like this and basically saying they're part-time, they've been doing lots of hours and haven't been made full-time, or they're part-time, they're willing to do more hours, but the casuals are filling that gap. I wondered if you could comment a little bit on the what you've secured with the other officers on reducing and removing casuals from the industry. And then I think obviously as well, maybe sometimes it's a case where we need to reiterate that the stuff around, making part-timers up is in our national agreements anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to comment on the detail, and I know you're not asking me because each unit will have specific issues that once you delve into, there may be another side to the debate or the argument. So it's hard to comment. But I mean, on a general principle, we've already got the job security agreement, which should mean that on a 6 monthly basis, part-timers' hours are reviewed against what they're actually working compared to what they're contractually working. There's a recommitment to those elements in the agreement. I think the other important factor to the agreement is the company wanted very much the union to sign up to annual revisions in delivery, which we have done. And that will provide an opportunity. Now, the scale of an annual revision, once a unit has been through a structural revision every year, will probably be relatively minor, because if there isn't that much change within a unit, and leaving aside COVID and the extraordinary position we've been in recently, but if a unit has just seen sort of relatively normal growth or decline, letters or parcels one by the other, there isn't a great deal of change. The revision activity in the unit will be relatively small. But nevertheless, if every year you have an annual review, then that, on top of the 6 monthly reviews that we've already got, does provide an opportunity to uplift part-timers. In addition to that, what we are going to do, we'll include it in the guidelines that we to undertake the tabletop activity, and it will be included in the structural revision activity for activity in 21, will be the focus on reviewing existing part-timers' hours, how many hours are actually contracted, and how many hours have actually been working, and the basis on which they're working those hours, whether they're covering someone else who's long-term sick, or whether they're hours that are just necessary because their own delivery or their own duty cannot be done in that time, and then that will give an opportunity in order to increase that contractual uplift. I suppose in addition to that, in terms of the productivity stuff, there will be the opportunity once we've bottomed out the productivity, how the productivity measure applies, not the actual measure itself, because that's nailed down in the agreement, to look at the work hours that are being used, look at the AWD within an office, and look at a trend and over a period of time, and to use that information in order to uplift part-timers and part-timers' contractual elements. So there's things in the agreement which absolutely will help that position. There's already existing agreements to do that now, but the agreement that obviously we're asking you to vote yes for enforces some of those things, actually can enable us and will enable us to build on that to make that position better. Plus, if you're doing structural revision activity more frequently, on top of that, there's an opportunity then to uplift part-timers as well, or uplift their hours to full-time or whatever. So they're all things we think that will improve that situation.
Thank you, Mark. Touching on revision slickly into my next question, which is really a long one from Luke. I'm going to try and put it on screen, but I'm not sure how it will show up. Yeah. So my name's Luke Atwell. I'm a union rep for Eastbourne Delivery Office. Eastbourne is in the 100-unit pilot sites for Pathway to Change. The national planning team's devised a revision for Eastbourne over the last 7 to 8 months. Has been given clearance to proceed by all Royal Mail stakeholders. Obviously, I have no involvement in the revision. I've now had sight of the plan from a supportive manager, and what concerns me most is the decimation of part-time working. Currently, there are 39. I'm assuming Luke is saying 39 part-time members currently in the office. What would you say to those reps who are facing, like at this juncture, Royal Mail trying to implement revisions that basically they've been working on without our reps' involvement?
I would say in the agreement, and it's very clear on this, that all of that activity will have to be redone. Any data that's previously been carried out by Royal Mail planning teams will have to go through the new revision process, which we're in the process of agreeing. It will also have to go through the unit readiness check, and it will be a new revision. It actually says that in the words. Any revision activity will be a new revision. It will be jointly agreed, jointly developed, in line with the agreements that we've got, including issues around full-time, part-time mix, issues around attendance patterns, as I mentioned earlier on, the options around 9-day fortnights, Wallet weeks, whatever. All of those options are in there. All of those things will be enshrined in the agreement. And frankly, I don't really care what pre-work Royal Mail have done or what proposals they put on the table to you previously. These are new revisions. The words in the agreement couldn't be clearer. Yes, if there's background data work that's been done in order to inform the geo route, of course, Royal Mail are going to want to put that on the table. That can be looked at, but that has to be gone through and jointly signed off by the rep and the manager before you can undertake the revision, as well as all the other things, ingredients that make up the revision, and that has to be agreed. So that's very firm in the agreement. It's very firm because we insisted on that. We've also insisted on a 30 pilot site approach, because obviously we wanted to, before we roll out a program of structural revisions, and there's 400 due in 21, but that's dependent on where we end up with this terrible position on COVID. And, when we're out of this to a point where we can deploy it, but it doesn't stop advanced planning. And once we've concluded all the guidelines, that's what we want people to do. But there'll be a 30 pilot approach to structural revisions. And that is in order. The reason we wanted a pilot approach, and once again, it was us who asked for that, was that we want to work through those 30 pilot units. We want to make sure that we've got the right processes and the order of the revision activity in the right way. Plus, we want to make sure that the company are absolutely sticking to their side of the agreement, and we're working through that jointly in the right way. That will also then enable us to develop the support, the training, and the rest of the program necessary to support that for our reps. And so that is the approach we've adopted. So absolutely, that is a key part of the agreement. These are new revisions. These aren't something that the manager is going to blow off the dust that he's been waiting to introduce for the last 2 years and then impose that. That's not what this is about. This is about doing it jointly. It's about change jointly and change jointly with agreement in line with our agreements and our processes.
Thank you, Mark. Hopefully, Luke, that's reassuring for you. I'm sure it is, my friend. Jimmy here, Mark, asked, will deliveries go 9 till 5? Again, like using Jimmy's example to sort of bring together a lot of questions, which are saying, does voting for this agreement mean that all of a sudden I'm endorsing loads of later start and finish times?
The Dolly Parton model is what I called it in 2018 because it was working 9 to 5, if you remember. That is where Royal Mail started on that particular debate. And once again, through our collective strength, we defeated that position. And I think the agreement is very clear on the 9 to 5 proposal in that current arrival patterns, start times, go out times, maybe not start times because that will vary depending on indoor workload, but it won't be a 9 to 5 arrangement. The specification is unchanged. The agreement is very clear on that. That model was ruled out. Look, we went through a very long and it was a hard-fought campaign. Fantastic yes vote at that time delivered a great agreement, the 2018 Four Pillars Agreement, which dealt with that issue, and we dealt with the LAT offices at that time, and we also dealt with reducing the impact of connecting that LAT work as much as possible, or the stuff that could connect with core without impinging on core delivery start times and duty patterns, and that has been maintained in this agreement. And so that is not the model that is now in front of you. So absolutely, I think that's very clear in the agreement.
Thanks, Mark. Brilliant. It is an interesting one from Chris Laurie. He said, if Mark was in our position, what would he be questioning in this agreement? And I suppose it brings me to the question of, like, obviously, Mark, you're somebody like all of our officers who's come through the ranks, done the job, and been elected, and been fortunate to have been elected into union positions over the years. But, is this an agreement which, as a national officer, you're proud to commend to the members? You feel this is, it befits their support over the last few years?
Well, absolutely, I do, because I wouldn't sit here and say otherwise. I mean, the question, what would I suppose he's asking that question, Mark's asking that question in a way that, well, actually, is there something in there I'm not very happy with? And no, there isn't. There's challenges in the agreement, but there's challenges in life. I think that some of the commitments in there, particularly around, I know it's not specific to me, but I'm part of the negotiating team. The pay deal, the short working week, the commitments to job security, all the safeguards we've got. I mean, I'll tell you now, there ain't no other trade union in this country that I know of that are getting and are achieving agreements like that. So, are there things that there's always change. I'm probably not the most receptive person to change. I'm a bit of a stick in the mud at times, I suppose. But you've got to be open-minded, and in order to secure a future, that means embracing new products, new services. I really get the feeling from most people I talk to, our activists and members, that they recognise that now. They know that the job has changed. It has changed anyway. I get a little bit annoyed with managers, or very annoyed actually, when they say, well, nothing's changed in delivery. They couldn't be further from the truth, because that's not true. I mean, in delivery, as well as the rest of the industry, things have changed dramatically over the last 10 years. The way that people carry out the job, the methods they use, the amount of scanning, doorstep activity, the new products and services. There's a whole range of things that the job's changed in. And so, I think our members are open-minded to that. Are there things in the agreement? No. Are there challenges? Absolutely. There's always going to be challenges. The world we live in is not as certain, particularly now this crisis and what COVID has done as well, and that's going to be economically, a very long impact that's going to be felt. So, but our members have got a great, I think it's a great agreement. I think there's fantastic commitments in there that's second to none in terms of, you're looking around the world around you, you're seeing people losing jobs, you're seeing people saying, I'm having to take pay cuts, I'm having to make sacrifices. And I know our members deserve it. I'm not saying otherwise. And they've worked, we said that at the start, through the pandemic. And it's only, the fact that that's happened and our challenges over the last couple of years and our solidarity in the way that we've stuck together that has achieved it. So I'm very proud of this agreement, as well as the 2018 agreement. I think both are fantastic. The bit that really disappoints me is what's happened over the last 18 months, 2 years with management, because we really could have been a lot further down this journey if management had stuck to that agreement in 2018, because that, without a question, was the right agreement for the time, and it included everything around how we deal with the changing dynamics of growth in parcels, decreasing letters, and looking for innovation, improving and trying to enhance letters and stemming that decline, but also looking for local product opportunity, which is enshrined in this agreement. So, the frustration, if I've got one, is the fact that we've had to go, backwards in some sense to get where we've got to. But you can't undo what's gone. All you can do is take forward what we have, and what we have is a very good agreement, and one that we're all absolutely committed to as negotiators, and we're urging, obviously, all our reps and our members to be equally committed to it and to take it forward, grab hold of the benefits that are within it, but also drive the change on our terms as well. So I think that's important. So absolutely proud of it, Chris.
Thank you, Mark. Brilliant. So Jason's question here: are Royal Mail still wanting Monday to Friday's letters and parcels, Saturday and Sunday parcels only? Amongst, again, trying to generalise a lot of questions we've had, saying, what is the status of the USO? Is that still under threat? Does this agreement change it, in any way, shape or form?
The company, and I mean, at the moment, that's out. The USO consultation is going out to user needs, and it's up for review with Ofcom, and Ofcom are undertaking some of that early activity. Ultimately, that is a question that's enshrined in the Postal Services Act, and it's a question for politicians, and it's a question in terms of their decision in the Act. It's not one that lies solely with the company. The regulator can make a recommendation to government, and then government will make a decision on whether it acts. Our position has been very clear on defending the 6-day USO. Absolutely. We still very much hold that position. Will Royal Mail look to improve efficiency in their eyes by trying to drop the Saturday out of the USO? That they may well want to do that. There are, some of the other European postal administrations have already done that. Obviously, now we're out of Europe. The EU statute is for a 5-day USO already. So at least in that sense, the 6-day USO is a UK commitment. It's no longer tangled up with the EU. But the regulation generally and the consultation that Ofcom are just about to undertake is not solely about the universal service and how many days. It's also about the regulatory framework, and there are other dangers in there which equally we must be vigilant over, and we will obviously oppose things like Royal Mail becoming a downstream access player for parcel carriers, so they just become a final mile provider and they lose the upstream costs and things like that. They're equal dangers. And equally, Royal Mail dropping not to 5 days, but trying to move to less than 5 days, to 3 days or 4 days. So, Now, our position is that we vigorously defend the 6-day USO. There is an impact on letters at the moment. Letters have declined. Annually, they've declined because of less people sending letters. And through this pandemic, we've seen a drop-off, which some of which has come back. But overall, there's been a decline in letters, all of which will bring into question the viability of the 6-day USO. That's a reality. And we will play a full part in that debate. But our position is absolutely that we believe that the 6-day USO should actually be enhanced through regulation, through increasing parcels, and defend it that way. So that is our position.
Thank you, Mark. A really good question from Chris here, which is totally unrelated to the agreement, but he says, anyone fancy a pint? So yeah, we can give you a very emphatic one-word answer to that. And that is yes, Chris, we do. Scott's question here is, says, short working week with the same chaos workload, how do we manage it? A lot, again, I'm trying to bring, so if you're thinking, oh, my question's not been asked, I can see a lot of you are asking similar types of questions, so I'm trying to group them together, and quite a few people asking about the shorter working week, and just saying basically, we recognise there's a benefit, it increases the hourly rates, part-timers get the obviously a pay rise out of it, but I'm still doing exactly the same workload I was doing yesterday, so that's it making my job harder, not easier.
The vehicle to introduce the hours reduction in the working week in 21 will be done through either in delivery, either a structural revision. So effectively, in a structural revision, you completely redraw all the boundary lines. So you'll have so many work hours in the office, and then the delivery routes will all be completely revised. So they'll be commensurate to how many hours workload you overlay that with the indoor element, and so the job will be designed differently. So you've got to think about that in a completely different mindset. It's effectively a completely new duty set and new set of delivery routes. So, and that'll incorporate the hours reduction in the working week. So that's in a sense that's relatively straightforward to deal with. The other bucket of units in order to achieve the hours reduction will be through tabletop revision activity, which we will look to balance the workload over the amount of work hours. We will do that using, as best we can, the productivity measure. Establish a baseline. That's not going to be very easy. I don't want to get too technical because some of this might go over some people's heads, but getting a baseline set in terms of establishing the workload that's relevant at the moment, particularly given the chaotic sense because of the COVID impacts, both in terms of social distancing, no two people in a vehicle, the exponential rise in parcels, and the drop-off in letters. And so getting something that's relevant as a start point in order to construct duties in an office is going to be a challenge. But we are working on doing that, and we want to make sure that when we introduce that second hour through that route, through the tabletop activity, it's balanced as fair and manageable as it can be, using all the data and the information to make that so. And there will be some units, whilst there'll be some that will there'll be efficiencies to be made, and then there'll be others that will need investment because they can't simply absorb that hour because their workload is already at a point where that makes it impossible. So we are going to work through that. That is a challenge, but it's one. At the end of the day, you're paid an hourly rate, and whether you can get the workload done. I know the manager will try to put people under pressure, but it's for them to ensure that you can achieve the workload in the hours that you get paid for. It's as simple as that. So it is a benefit. The short working week is one that we very much push for, particularly from a delivery point of view. And it's important that we introduce that because of the reasons that we know about. Because of declining indoor workload means, in order to sustain full-time jobs, means longer and longer out on the street. and with an aging workforce in delivery. I think the average age in delivery, I think at the last count was around about 49 or something like that. And so, you know, the span of delivery, if you've got to fill less time up, obviously it helps if the full-time equivalent is less, plus obviously for part-timers there's a pay rate uplift as a result as well, and uplift on all the other benefits. So I mean, it's important that we we push forward on that, and we will do it in a fair way.
Thank you, Mark. Neil, again, Neil Kidwell's making a point I've seen made several times tonight. He says, to deliver a good revision, local reps need training and release, no compromise. And Neil's made a point, as have several, both members and representatives, saying, like, we're going to need time to get our heads around this stuff and get trained on it. What would you say to that?
I absolutely agree, which is why I don't want to keep saying it's in the agreement, but it is in the agreement. I know that's words. And now what we've got to do is bring those words to life, indeed, with the company. But absolutely, we're going to be working on that. And we already are working on that, a training program. You know, there's a lot of upskilling. There's a gap, and there has been a gap through lack of proper involvement over the last 18 months, 2 years, because of what we've all been through. And so, you know, I've made it very clear to the company from a delivery perspective, and I know the other officers have as well, that the only way we're going to deliver this change, and the only way we can deliver successful revision activities, is by that being done jointly. So not only it being jointly developed, but also it being jointly delivered, and that means equal status for the reps in terms of training, in terms of release, and in terms of the ability to have proper input with the information, proper training and support, in order to be an equal partner at the table, if you like, in the locality, in order to deliver the revision. So, Neil, we're on that page, and we will do everything we can to make sure that comes about as part of the change.
Thank you, Mark. We are now to the end of our hour. With your permission, Mark, I know you're a very, very busy man. If you're okay, I would like to go another 10 minutes or so, because we've got quite a few questions, and I know the members would appreciate that.
Depends what you're going to ask me. You got any snookers?
I haven't. No, they're all good questions from members, and we have got a cut off, obviously, because 7:30 we're back again. Our members in Open Reach are going through an industrial action ballot, so we have a solidarity session. So we have a natural cut off, but just a couple more questions for you, Mark, and they're really good ones as well. So, Tom, and whilst Mark's doing that, actually, it'd be great if you could come into the comments, because if you appreciate that your union has delivered a solid pay rise whilst, every single worker in the public sector is getting a pay freeze, or if you appreciate that your union's got a job security agreement and no compulsory redundancies whilst 1 million people have been put on the dole in the last year, and if you appreciate that whilst businesses are downsizing and CEOs are trashing companies, your union secured an agreement on growth and change. And simply put, I'm CW and proud in the comments now, and we'll share the best of them, because this agreement truly is something to be proud of. Back to questions. Tom is saying, and he, again, bringing a lot of questions together here. He said, will there be any upgrades to the PDA hardware? There's some days I'm going through 3 batteries on a normal shift. Lots of people, Mark, are saying that, recognise the agreement. They're going to vote yes, but are we going to get the equipment we need to do the job?
Well, I mean, obviously, that's dependent on Royal Mail, the investment. On the PDA, I think they're going through an assessment themselves at the moment to upgrade. I think they're going through the process of, what devices and sort of kind of like user needs sort of study themselves. So they are working through that, and they aim to, introduce the next generation of PDAs very soon, because that's a common complaint. The other one is that they don't work in the rain and when they get wet, and so it's absolutely important that the right kit and equipment is provided. So yes, that's happening at the moment. I'm not sure. I'll check tomorrow where they are with that, and we'll put something out, because that is a common complaint. But they are doing that. I don't know where they are now with the program because of COVID, whether that's delayed it or whatever. But it's not just on just on the PDA. Yeah, absolutely, because there's more and more work tasks now, and more things are being moved onto it. So not just around consumer collections in flight, but they're also now the drivers checks on the PDA, etc., etc. So there's no point in moving all that on there if the equipment isn't good enough. Over and above that, though, it's not just on the PDAs; it's the whole design and delivery needs. Actually, on a call with the senior management team earlier on this afternoon, and said the same thing to them. And there's also a paragraph in the agreement that refers to it on the delivery and revision activity, is that they need to come up with solutions and answers to the volumetrics, to vehicles, the restrictions that's placing under the roof in delivery offices. You look in some DOs and the parcels all over the floor. There's nowhere to sort. There's no manifest. It's a chaotic situation. The design indoor needs to be completely looked at, as well as I say on the outdoor. And you're even seeing some places. I'm getting images sent into me where our members are using those polypropylene cage things that Amazon drivers discard because they've got no way of actually sorting the items in the vehicles. They've not been agreed or signed off, or there's a say systems of work. But what it does do, by the fact that they're using things like that, illustrates that they're not getting enough support in order to rack the parcels and things like that in the back of vans. So yes is the answer to that. It's not just PDAs, it's all kit and equipment, and the investment just hasn't been there. And the company, I think this is the other thing in the agreement, is around the obsession with Royal Mail around efficiency and taking out cost, instead of which looking at the growth and coming up with solutions and practical help to enable our members to be able to carry out the delivery of parcels and storage and sorting of them as well in an efficient way. So there's been too much emphasis, said this to them as well, on looking at multi-bundle trials on letters and all the rest of it, on the bit of the operation that's declining, and there's not enough focus on the bit of it that's growing. And most of these delivery offices now are maxing out on parcels. There's nowhere to store them. There's yolks everywhere, the bull rings, all the rest of it. It's just not good enough. So we are pushing them very hard on all those things, as well as the PDA and investment on vehicles. But obviously, at the end of the day, that's their call. We will push as hard as we can do. I can absolutely assure you.
Thank you, Mark. That's great. Just a couple more questions, and I'm going to give you the chance to sum up. The first of which is some concern around in quite a few sections of the agreement. The word local is mentioned. Obviously, yourself and the other officers have made that absolutely crystal clear. That's about empowering our members and the local rep. But some people are worried that management will read that and think, we can move away from national agreements and start, where perhaps the union isn't as strong as in some of our not so strong areas, we can take advantage and we can start shoehorning in change. What could you say to reassure those members?
I'd say to them that the strength of our agreements is the fact that they have the ability to take in local circumstances and local impacts. And the other key thing in the agreement is around the fact that we've got like trust on the doorstep and local initiatives, and you've seen that throughout the pandemic and the crisis, where locally people have come up with different solutions to get around the current problems. So that's got to be encouraged. Now that takes confidence. It takes confidence from us, but it also takes confidence from management, who traditionally and particularly over recent years have had a very centralist diktat approach, where it's phony local involvement, where really the local manager hasn't really got the ability or the opportunity to shape things locally, because they've been put on a very tight line whilst above them, and they're giving trying to give some sort of illusion that they've got flexibility locally when they haven't. So people have got to have some confidence, our reps included, in that activity. In terms of the way we try and shape delivery agreements, you can't And this is the argument we had with them about, one size fits all attendance pattern, one size fits all outdoor delivery span, etc., etc. Because you cannot, that will not work, and it will not apply from Land's End to John O'Groats and everywhere in between, because the circumstances are absolutely different. Your rural office, town office, big city office, the customer profile is different, the part-time, full-time mix is different, the arrival patterns are different in the units, the culture's different, the expectations in terms of earnings is different. And so, the company have got to recognise that. And I think in the words that we've now got, that there is a recognition of that. And on top of that, there is a recognition of, the ability to shape local innovative duty patterns and local solutions. And all of us have got to have some confidence in that. And, those areas that I understand they might be fearful of that, but they should try and remove that fear and embrace that, because that is the only way we're going to make progress. That I think the new management senior direction in the company recognise that. You can't just simply shoehorn. It's almost like the Stepford Wives approach in every single office and say that everyone's going to work like a robot and into the same structure and rest. It won't work. It's no good it won't work. Plus, it won't help to build the company and won't help to build growth and innovation.
Thank you, Mark. Final question. Brilliant that you've linked into it as well, which is on growth and innovation. Some members, saying they're all for it. Other members saying we're for it, but we've heard it all before, both from the company and the union. Like, what makes this different? And supplementary to that question, will members via their union and perhaps the company have the opportunity to input ideas and their sort of like thoughts on what the future of deliveries look like?
Well, on that last point, I want, through this going forward and through yourself, Chris, to maybe do that, to set up some formats and some forums where maybe we can have a kind of like a thought generating or service, or the opportunity to sort of sense check people's ideas around new products and services. So on that point, I think we want to do that jointly with you, because we don't have all the answers up here. Not that we're saying we do or pretend to. And, we want to take people's input. You've heard it all before. There has been growth, different opportunities. I would argue that some of the things which I've taken a few lumps for, I have to say, agreeing to like Consumer Collect and things like that, In-Flight 1 and 2, and some of the other initiatives that people have actually criticised us for and have said that, you shouldn't have done that. I don't agree with that. For me, we need to change. It needs to be the right change and the right terms and conditions, and in the right way, and what people can cope with, change that people can deal with. But absolutely, that's what we stand for. So we've heard it all before. Hopefully, you'll hear it all again, because that's where we want to go. If we don't, for a while, don't change and innovate, it'll go stale. And if it doesn't change and it doesn't innovate, then it will lose market share, and it will cease to become relevant or have less relevance. And that's not, look, none of us want that to happen. That's not where we want to be. Only by a successful company. We wished it wasn't one that was wholly privately owned, but that is the case. But only a successful company that is doing well, and is one that we can enhances their members' terms and conditions, which we bargain over, and produces the opportunity for us to get deals like the one we've got and improve job security and get those commitments. So, I mean, it's in everyone's interest that we grow. I think what's different this time as well, I do genuinely sense that the new leadership of the company has brushed away this shrink and decline approach, which I think the previous regime had, Rico back in particular. That's all that was about. As I said earlier, shrinking the core, making that wither on the vine, and then growing anything outside of that, but on inferior terms and conditions. That's not the agenda now. And so it's in our interest to grow the service, to offer different products and services, and to innovate and to push the company on coming up with local solutions as well in order to do that. I think the world that we're going through has had some massive, massive negatives, but one, I suppose, ray of slight chink of sunlight, if you like, has come out of it. Is, I think it has enhanced our members' reputation and the role that they play, and I think we need to grasp that and build on it. And I think that's changed Royal Mail.
Thank you, Mark. Brilliant. We got through so many questions and you give so many detailed answers, and I know the members can see from the comments really appreciate that. In fact, James is saying, can we do this every night? I'm loving it. Well, James, you can come back in about 20 minutes, mate, for another session with the Openreach members and show them some solidarity. So that's brilliant. Your comments are brilliant, both the challenging ones, the criticism, and obviously the praise. We take it all equally because that's your right as a member of this great trade union. What I'm going to do now is just offer Mark the chance to, for a minute or so, just sum up, Mark, and ahead of the ballot papers landing next week, what would your final message to our members in delivery be?
I just want to say thanks again for everything that you do. Thanks everything, the work that you've put in over the last 10 months, which is incredibly difficult for everybody. I want to thank our reps as well. Absolutely, nothing but admiration for our local reps. And I want to say to our members as well, support your local reps. It can be a lonely place when you're a local rep, and I know I've been there as well. I've trod in them shoes, many years ago now, but I remember what it's like. When you walk in the morning, you got the manager in your role, you got the members, you're stuck in the middle of it, and you're a volunteer. In many cases, you're going over and above your time, and you're putting your own personal time and commitment in, and you take it home as well. And so, and all the strife that causes. So, I really do thank our local reps and our area reps. Without you, without your fantastic support and our members and the work that you all do, we wouldn't be in this position. So this is a crossroads in terms of a turning point of where we've come from. It is the pathway to change, and that's what it's called. It's not called that by accident. That's our joint construction of those words, including the title. And it is a pathway to change for all of us, including management. There's a lot of work enshrined within the agreement, but it's a good agreement. It's the right agreement for its time, and it deserves your support. And we absolutely, thoroughly recommend it. And there's going to be a lot of activity, as I say, ahead, but jointly together, look, we can overcome anything together. I know we can, we have done, and we'll continue to do that. So thanks very much for your support, and thanks very much for participating in tonight's event. It's been enjoyable. So thanks very much. We can do more going forward, Chris.
See, Mark's agreeing with James. He wants to come on every single night. So first of all, thank you to Mark. So obviously, coming here, and obviously we've gone 15 minutes over. So for an hour and a quarter, to not have any idea what coming at him, I think Mark's done a fantastic job, and I think that's reflected in all of your comments I'm seeing come up on screen now. So, thanks, Mark, for giving up your time. And I know I can say, speak for Mark and say he's always willing to come in front of the members. So we'll get him back as soon as we possibly can. I also want to say thank you to our brilliant signers, Francis and Nicola tonight. They've done a great job, again, keeping up with us and interpreting what we're saying and all our strange acronyms that we use in Royal Mail. So it's great to have you guys with us. One more plug, which is at 7:30, which I think is about 15 minutes. I'm back with the telecoms team to talk about a ballot that's happening. 180 of our members in Openreach who are being balloted to defend their terms and conditions. Please come on, just show a little bit of solidarity, show we're one union. It's massively appreciated. But from Mark and I, we're signing off for the night. So take it easy, everyone. And the ballot papers come out on the 18th next week. And please make sure you support your union by voting yes. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.